So here we are, two guys about to discuss the Me Too movement. How do you feel about this?
Well, I'm going to tell you as a neutral arbiter of the facts, and I'm going to explain to you legally what happened. I'm not going to get politically involved because there's two opinions. There's a court of public opinion, and then there's a court of law.
Sure.
I would think that you're going to talk about the court of public opinion. I'm just going to tell you the law and why Harvey Weinstein, the case was overturned.
Right. Harvey Weinstein's a big name in this particular discussion. Bill Cosby's a name in there too, right? I mean,
Cosby and Weinstein were the two faces. I think so. I think they were both. The Harvey Weinstein was the one that started it. I think Bill Cosby came after it.
Right.
I think Cosby on the timeline was convicted first. I'm not sure.
Actually. I believe Cosby was the first. Harvey Weinstein might have been the biggest sort of to launch this cultural movement of the Me Too movement.
Yes. Yes.
So look, I mean, I was asking facetiously earlier, is it okay for two of us to sit here and talk about Me Too, two guys? Of course it's freaking okay. I think it's okay. I think everybody should speak on every issue, and then the best ideas should rise to the top. However, I'm absolutely aware of the fact that we're missing a perspective of a woman here.
Right.
We're missing that in this discussion.
Right.
And that no matter how hard we try and how in-depth we try to go and how fair we try to be, we are going to be without the perspective of a female, which would have been really nice in this discussion. So maybe on the next one we can have it. We're going to try.
Right. Yeah. The female perspective is very, very important. But I will disclose that I feel the pain of these complaining witnesses, and I'll call them victims. They probably are victims in the court of public opinion. But as a lawyer, as a criminal defense attorney, we don't like to call them victims unless they are testifying and unless they're corroborated, their testimony is corroborated. Because by calling them victims, there's an underlying innuendo that a crime has already been committed, and obviously in a court of law, the defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So in my opinion, the word victim connotes or has an innuendo that there was an actual crime that was committed.
True.
So I use the word complaining witness.
Okay.
But
that's a lot.
But based on the facts of this case, based on what I've read in the court of opinion, I will agree that Harvey Weinstein is probably a scumbag. He's probably a bully. Okay. But is that enough to call it a crime? That's what this case is about. These people coming forward, two individual females. One of them, I believe, had consensual sex, but then she claims that later on she had more sex that wasn't consensual. So that's a little,
shaky.
Something that the jury needs to parse out.
Right.
And
this is the New York criminal.
Yeah, the New York criminal
case against Harvey Weinstein,
right,
for sexual assault.
Yeah, and I think the other one was forced oral sex, where he allegedly went. How can I put this? He
forced himself
on somebody, and he performed oral sex on that person. So
he performed oral?
Yes, he performed oral sex.
Okay.
Which was allegedly forced. I know that sounds a little confusing, but I guess it's possible. She said she froze. She didn't move. She was very scared.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah, of course. And that is possible.
He seems like a creepy enough guy where anything like that. It just seems like we don't know him, but we've seen enough of him by now to kind of gauge.
There's a saying.
He's creepy.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
And there's a whole ton of smoke. But, when you go in the arena, let's call it the octagon in the UFC fight, you only could throw in evidence in the UFC fight. You can't throw in smoke. So there's a lot of smoke, but we need to see where the fire is. And the fire is evidence.
Right.
So in the court of law, the evidence is like a cup of water.
Right.
It's not even enough to have some drips in it. You have to have the cup filled almost 3/4 of the way, which is called reasonable doubt.
Right.
So yes, is a scumbag. Yes, is a bully. Probably did this to a lot of females. But in this case, the reason why the case got overturned is because they brought in a whole bunch of other women that he was never charged with any kind of crime for.
Right.
So this is where it gets sticky, and everybody's going to start emailing us and saying we're misogynistic. I'm a scumbag criminal defense attorney. But I will say, if you accuse a guy, or anybody for that matter, of a crime, it's only fair that that person has an opportunity to get the notice that you know what's going on, an opportunity to be heard, and an opportunity to respond. So Weinstein's appeal was overturned because they were bringing in other incidents. and other accusations.
They
and
call them prior bad acts.
not only prior bad acts, but also things that he did that weren't really related. They call it the modus operandi, his method of operation. They're basically saying that he did this under this structure. Like, for example, he has empowerment over everybody. He yells at people. They were going to bring examples of him yelling at a restaurant staff members about not bringing his food, about a fight that he had with his brother.
Just in general, painting him as a bad dude.
I call it, throwing,
Smearing him with a bunch of
doo-doo at him, a lot of doo-doo.
Smearing him with doo-doo, and then the jury smells that, and he smells bad.
And that's it. And so based on that ruling, Harvey Weinstein couldn't testify. So he appealed it, saying, hey, listen, you violated my rights in two ways. Number one, I didn't get due process.
Because of not being able to testify?
Yeah, because you're basically telling me all these women that you never charged me for now are going to come in and establish my modus operandi, which is extremely prejudicial.
Why did that prevent him from testifying?
Because he didn't want to answer all the questions about him fighting with his brother and all the other things that were non-related to this case. And by bringing these witnesses in, he'd have to answer those questions. Oh, because he'd be taking a position that I would never do this, right? Which opens the door.
It opens the door, yeah.
And it opens. So you never had a fight with your brother. You never hired Black Cube, the Mossad company, to go threaten actresses like Anna. What was her name? The famous actress that testified, Annabelle Score, the Italian actress, very pretty. There were a lot of people that he basically blackballed. And he would hire people to investigate them. I'll find out the girl's name.
Well, let's back up.
Yeah.
We're talking about this sort of power trip that he was on in his reign in Hollywood, right? I mean, Harvey Weinstein has produced and executive produced some of the most amazing pop culture movies directed by incredible directors, right? And he had a maybe you can say he had a great knack for picking talent early on. David O. Russell, Quentin Tarantino, the list goes on forever.
Yeah.
He would pick festival-winning talent in terms of directors, writers, actors and actresses, projects. At some point they called him Harvey Scissorhands.
Okay.
Because he was known to come into the edit bay,
all right,
like way extensively more than other EPs or producers with the director, and kind of be like, no, like, the ending's got to be like this. And he would kind of get hands-on. So you could say he kind of had a reign as a tastemaker in Hollywood, where he had the eye at least to couple the right talent together on a project to make it a massive success, right? Miramax, him and his brother.
Miramax is actually based on his parents' name, Mira and Max. I think his bad dad's name was Max and his mom's name was Mira. And he had talent. He's from Flushing, Queens.
Right.
I'm from Queens, by the way. Just a little coincidence.
Okay.
A little coincidence.
Okay.
And yeah, he had a lot of talent. I think he went to University of Buffalo. He did a movie called The Burning. That was his claim to fame. He did like amazing editing.
Right.
I know a lot about that.
Right.
But
he wasn't a director per se or a filmmaker per se, but he was like the guy above it, kind of guiding the pieces and trying to make it successful. The point is, it led to power.
And he had power back then. Apparently, when he was filming The Burning in school, one of the people that were actually investigated said that he had the proclivity for sexual deviancy back then. Translated, he was doing naughty stuff back then also. That he had that. So that's called, by the way, that's all a part of the motive, intent. Modus operandi means his method of operation.
Right.
Rose McGowan, who is one of the actresses that is accusing him, one of the forefronts of the Me Too movement, is basically saying that he used his entire power under Miramax as a human trafficking umbrella, basically saying that it was a front. She said the whole thing was a front. Yeah, he made movies, but his intent was to basically use his power to sleep with women. Right.
So let's ask whether that's true. And by the way, you just opened the door for me to talk about the Me Too movement. So we're going to bring it in. It's a cultural thing. You mentioned it. I mean, I know we're talking about it, but like in the beginning of the Me Too movement, you had Bill Cosby go down because he's allegedly drugging and sleeping with women across his career from many decades ago. Harvey Weinstein, accused of so much wrongdoing with sexual intent behind it, underpinned by his Hollywood power, right? His ability to take a starlet and say, you're going to be in this award-winning movie. To take... I don't know. I mean, mostly it was females. I haven't heard of anything about Harvey Weinstein abusing men. Maybe he threw his weight around with men too, but not in a sexual way.
No,
it was women.
in a violent way.
So I guess the question is, I don't know if it's a question, but like it's interesting to watch how this Me Too movement developed and turned into this cultural storm. It just like grew and grew and grew until more and more women threw their name in the hat, put the hashtag on their, post, joined the movement. In essence, this sort of the swell turned into a tidal wave, right? And then it swept. I mean, how long did Me Too last? I don't know, but it like swept away the careers of many, many men, many powerful men, right? In politics, in entertainment, in sports, in news. So many. Do you remember?
Of course.
Yeah. Bill Clinton was not Me Too because that's way, way before. But that's kind of an early incident, right? Of this icon, I guess this theme of a powerful man using his power to lure in a younger woman to sort of entrap her in some kind of a sexual net, would you say? Would you say that's like, I'm trying to look back into the roots that led to Me Too in a big way. Like a lot of these like famous cases that came before Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, that was more with a different class of people.
I look at it like a dam that was about to break, and it's been a dam going on for a long time. And then Harvey Weinstein, when he actually got arrested, a lot of other females in the Hollywood industry said, yeah, me too. That happened to me. And his karma got to the best of him because he had so many people that he did this to. It wasn't 1, 2, 3. It was like 19, 20, maybe more, 30, 40. So,
it was a pattern for a long time.
I would say it's his karma that got back to bite him in the you-know-what.
For sure. But like you look at the overall, it had to be social media that allowed that wave to crest or for that dam to break. It had to be social media because I'm sure women have complained throughout history more and more. Maybe it's accumulated over time where like men have thrown their power around to sort of gain sexual favors. Women have probably protested to the extent that they can, to the extent that they have the power to. Some have probably pushed back hard and maybe been demonized or ostracized. Some have probably just stayed quiet because you can't, they didn't have the power to push back.
Yeah.
Right?
So I want to disclose that I personally know people who have been people in my family who have had sexual trauma, friends. They say that 1 out of every 5 women are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. So we all know somebody. And I'm married, I understand and I sympathize, and in no way do I condone any of this behavior. I think it's abhorrent, and but the thing is, on the flip side, as a criminal defense attorney, when you enter my arena, when you come into my temple of justice, and you want that guy to go away for 20 years, you got to answer, even though you're a victim. You have to answer, and the guy over there has a right to listen to what you're saying, because if you want somebody to be warehoused, human warehoused, which is what prisons are, if you want them to go inside a box for 20 years, you're going to need to tell the jury beyond a reasonable doubt why this person committed the crime. And I know that's a horrible thing to say because, the counter argument would be, well, you don't believe the victim. Well, the victim's word isn't gospel. We have a right to ask questions, because if that was the case, if the argument is, well, why are you asking questions? Maybe we shouldn't have a jury trial. Just accuse somebody of whatever and just put them in jail. And I explain to every client as a criminal defense attorney that, in my opinion, okay, and I believe Donna Rotuno, who was the attorney for Harvey Weinstein, representative, she feels the same way. I believe women do have more power than men now. Not in the past, but now. Why now? Because any woman, and I'm not giving anybody any ideas, I hope I'm not, but any woman could go to a police officer and start crying and acting and saying, that guy over there across the street, and she would describe that guy, he's wearing so-and-so, is right there. He just touched my breast. He just touched my butt, and act in a shaken manner. That police officer has probable cause to go arrest that person. That police officer now puts that guy in handcuffs, puts him in jail. It's $100,000 bail in California. And it's just that simple.
Is it really?
And guys don't have that power. A guy's not going to point at a girl and say, that girl just raped me. Never happens.
Right.
I'm telling you I've never heard of it. You could ask anybody, any criminal defense attorney. It's only the guys. So the women do have power.
Right.
Now, whether the women use that power.
Exactly.
In my opinion, it's culturally based and demographic based. I've had, and women say, why would somebody lie? Right? Well, guess what? There are women that I have personally exposed that have lied. that have accused people of rape when there wasn't rape.
Women can lie.
Again,
Women can tell lies. This is what you're saying.
again, and not everything everybody says is gospel.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
We
There's
get
a
to
sense
the-
of there's a sense of
Well, they're just human,
Yeah.
just like guys are. Of
Yeah.
course, guys can lie and women can lie.
Yeah.
And I look, what you're,
but just go back to Harvey Weinstein though. When there's 19 people saying the same thing, you know it's different. I'm only
well,
telling.
let me just push back on that. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly not here to defend Harvey Weinstein or any of these abhorrent men who like use the power to push sexual favors in ways on women who don't want it. I just that like both of us don't understand that, and we look down upon it. So that should go without saying, right? But you were saying, would women lie, and did
Yeah.
some women lie?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
And that gets into why the court overturned Weinstein. There was a 4-3 decision, and the leading decision was by a female. Very important, by the way. It wasn't by a male; it was by a female. And what she basically said is the trial court erroneously admitted testimony of uncharged, alleged prior sexual bad acts, and permitted questions about Weinstein's bad behavior if he had testified. It called this highly prejudicial and an abuse of discretion. And why it did that is because they're basically saying that it pigeonholed him to not testifying because he didn't want to talk about all these other irrelevant things, or maybe relevant things, but they're so collateral that it may confuse the jury.
So why did the trial judge allow that stuff in?
All right. I'm glad you asked that question. I've been waiting for that question. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think if the judge didn't allow the other complaining witnesses to testify, he would have been all over the news.
Okay, so it was tied into the social justice movement.
I think so.
Happening at the moment.
Or the other option is, or the judge didn't know the law. So you have either he didn't know the law, didn't understand the law very well, or didn't want to interfere with the social justice movement that was happening. And I think that the latter answer is the correct answer because I believe the judge knew, hey, listen, I'll give the Me Too movement a chance. Let them put this scumbag away. And we'll let the appeals court hash it out. And if they let him go, so be it. It's not on my watch.
And maybe that's how justice works. The wheels turn a little more slowly and clumsily. You go one step. Sometimes you go back a couple steps. Then you go forward.
But is
a
that
few
fair?
steps.
Is that fair? Is that justice? Even if Harvey Weinstein is absolutely guilty, all right, in a court of public opinion, and he is a scumbag and is a bully, is it fair to throw him in jail, giving him an unfair trial, knowing that he's guilty? We know he's guilty, all right? Well, maybe we don't, but let's say the court of public opinion says, but isn't it better to put him away in jail with a fair trial and not gang up on him with a bunch of witnesses that were never prosecuted? Give him a fair trial.
Yes.
Let's throw him away for a long time.
100%.
Right? But let's do it right. That's what the appellate court said. He said, listen, you threw too many things at him. And this guy, he could never win in a million years with the stuff that you threw at him.
And let's look at what the appellate court really is saying, right? Because like Weinstein went in, he got convicted in New York in the court.
Yeah.
Then the appeals court said, no, you guys did it wrong. You convicted him wrong.
Right.
Like you can't bring in these kinds of like other women that were not related in any way to this fact pattern that clearly don't like him. They got issues with him.
Right.
Listen, I don't like the guy. If you would have brought me into that trial, I would have said mad bad things about him. I don't even know him.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know him, but like these women have some first person encounters with him. Fair. Are they vetted? Are they telling the truth? Is there evidentiary limitations to what they can say? Like, are they just going to come in and like this trial judge said, let him in, let him talk. The jury probably took that in some sort of prejudicial way, according to the appeals court. And the appeals court said, you can't do that. You guys did it wrong.
But in fairness to the Me Too movement, there was a stinging dissent by Judge Madeline Singas, Singas, who wrote
In the appeals court?
in the appeals court. She disagreed completely. She said that this was a disturbing trend of overturning juries' guilty verdicts in cases involving sexual violence, and said this ruling came at the expense and safety of women. And furthermore, there was Judge Anthony Cannataro, Cannataro, who wrote in his decision that this decision was endangering decades of progress in the incredibly complex and nuanced area of law regarding sex crimes after centuries of deeply patriarchal and misogynistic legal tradition. Now,
That's interesting.
Now, I will tell you as a lawyer, that sounds more political to me than legal. Legal and political are different. There's the legally accurate answer, and then there's a political is based on social norms, social justice. But what comes first is legal accuracy before social justice. So,
But I'm curious about what that statement. I want to dive into it a little.
sure.
Has there been historically a legacy of misogynistic and patriarchal trends in the law? Of course there has.
Yes, because
I mean, it goes down to the Declaration of Independence and the beginning of and the Constitution and the so many documents mentioned only men. And
what about the Bible? It's completely patriarchal.
Okay.
It's written by men. Everything is men. Men are the best. The men is God. God is man. Moses was a man. Jesus was a man. There are no female, except for maybe Virgin Mary, I would say.
Right.
It's all about men, written by men.
Can I just say, though,
Yeah.
I don't believe that has anything to do with trying to destroy women or be bad towards women or be negative towards women. Like, men, for the I think greatest majority part, 99.9%, absolutely love women and want to be with women and take care of women and be taken care of by women and emotionally connect with women. I think even historically, I think there's been this like biological drive between men and women, which has driven the species forward, right? But so I just want to say this because this is just like, we're getting off topic. Biologically speaking, and I love reading about biology, learning about biological evolutionary biology and that kind of stuff. The fact that history has been so patriarchal and so, I'm not even going to say misogynistic. Actually, I don't want to use that word. That means it's like been against women. And I want to say, yeah, probably in some areas that's true. But in a general sense, the reason it's been patriarchal, meaning has empowered a lot of men, or men have sort of grabbed the bull by the horns and steered the discussion or written the document or fought the revolution or overthrown the king or whatever it is because biologically, women created men and men created women. What do I mean by that? Women choose the men that they mate with, which then propagates those genes. And guess what, ladies? You guys have been historically, over thousands and thousands of years, choosing for powerful, confident, ambitious men. That's what you guys have been selecting for. I don't know that men have necessarily been selecting for that in their mate choices if you go back thousands and thousands of years. We could look at it. But certainly women have seemed to be optimizing for that. And that choice, if you propagate it over billions of individuals over a society, you end up with this thing where, yeah, when you look at it, the people that seem to be seated in the seats of power across history are men, not women. And I still don't think that any of those men necessarily hate women or are against women or like are misogynistic, but I do think that it's patriarchal. So I kind of want to distinguish that.
So you're talking about a pendulum that's been swinging for centuries.
Yeah, picking up momentum. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question in this case, what ties into what you're saying is in this case, is the pendulum swinging too far in the wrong direction? And what I mean by that is, are we actually enacting laws that are very dangerous to the system in general in order to enact justice?
Right.
It's in this specific occasion against men who have been taking advantage of women for many, many years, either sexual harassment, sexual violence, and so forth. So yes, we need to prosecute these men. And absolutely, these people need to go to prison for a very long time. But the question is, how do we tip the balance in favor of fairness for these individuals? Do we bring in other people that have been accused that have never been charged? Is that fair to bring in 19 women to say, you did this thing to me and you're a bad person, where the defendant can't respond? Is that what we want to do with our justice system?
It's a good question, right? I mean, my gut says no, and we have evidentiary rules specifically against these kinds of things for a reason, right? So that it will quell the passions. So it'll keep us calm as we judge somebody in a court of law. Because actions can get out of control and we can turn into mob rule, right? Really easily. Yeah. So like we have laws of evidence, rules of evidence. What do you call them? Evidentiary, procedural laws.
Yeah.
That say, even if he may have said that, the jury will not hear that in this particular case because it may prejudice the fact pattern in this particular case. Like, so no, we try to create a more of a vacuum clean space where the jury can adjudicate. I don't know. But you were asking earlier, like, has the pendulum swung? In other words, if we've had a legal system that has been biased towards men historically, it probably has, right? I mean, it was until women got the right to vote. It was until women got the certain abortion rights, which we can argue.
You're asking me a political question.
But I mean, but then you asked, if we're going to say that the legal system was imbalanced in the favor of men for a long time, has the pendulum come to the point where we're willing to accept some imbalance against men now? Like in the Harvey Weinstein case, we're willing as a society to say, this guy's a bad guy. He's super creepy, bro. He is super creepy. Why don't we bring in 15 extra girls that are going to talk about his prior bad acts?
That's contrary to what the founding fathers of this country wrote the Constitution on. You just can't rig the system because you think it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Even if the guy's a scumbag, murderer, child molester, and you know he is, you just can't rig the system. You have to give him a fair trial because if you do that to him, then you might as well do it to everybody. You might as well kiss everything goodbye.
Right.
And the whole system crumbles down if you do that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't put him away. Let's put Harvey Weinstein away, but let's do it right. Let's give him a fair fight. It's a boxing ring, right? So let's put him against justice with gloves, but not put 5 other people in the ring beating him up at the same time.
Right.
Let's make it a one-on-one fight.
Right.
And bring the evidence that you have. And by the way, California has the same problem. And I know I'm going to get a lot of scrutiny for this, but there's something under Evidence Code 1109 that allows to bring in prior bad acts without those people ever being charged with a crime. In other words, the defendant gets to hear other people testify that you did this to me in 2008, you did this to me in 2007, even though no charges are brought. The jury gets to hear that.
That doesn't make sense to me. Am I crazy? I mean, that just like uncharged crimes.
Well, you're a guy. That sounds like a guy thing. So you're talking like a guy, but from the perspective of social movement and social justice, the reason why they pass that law is because they know a lot of females do not come forward statistically, realistically, or otherwise. They won't come forward because there's shame, embarrassment. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be re-traumatized, which is true. You'll hear experts that say. So they use that testimony for limited purpose, allegedly, to prove modus operandi. Translated in Latin, to prove your method of operation, that's how you roll, that's how you work. You use the casting couch to get girls to sleep with you. You tell them a story about how you're going to be a famous actress. I'm going to make you the hottest actress in the world. The girl sleeps with you. That's a part of what you do. And I'm going to bring in 19 other people to say that you did the same thing to those women, which I get it through a social justice standpoint. It makes sense to have Rose McGowan and Annabella. Annabella Scoria. I'm sorry, Annabella Sciorra Shoria. That was the lady I was talking about. So all these people have never ever been. They never prosecuted Harvey Weinstein. So now they're coming and telling all the woes that Harvey Weinstein caused. So the appellate court's saying that wasn't fair.
Got it. Let's dive into that because there's some legal distinctions here that are kind of interesting and really a little bit difficult to parse. Like I was reading that this Molinet rule. Do you know about this? Molinet rule?
Yeah.
Molinet.
It's a 1901 case that basically says you're not allowed. I'm glad it says basically the Molinet rule basically says that you are under the system of justice. The accused has a right to be held account for only the crime to be charged, and thus allegations of prior acts may not be admitted against them for the sole purpose of establishing their propensity for criminality. And
so the key Molinet rule, thank you for clarifying that, the key word there being propensity, right? Right. So it's like, as I understand it, the court is trying to put some guardrails here saying, okay, you want to bring in some other people to testify against this defendant, even though they're not involved in this case. Like Tony is accused of beating Robert you're going to bring in prior people to say, hey, dude, he beat me too. Like, he did do that. He actually hit me the same way he's accused of hitting Robert, I guess. Let's just say open palm slap in the
with a
ear.
Pink glove.
I'm trying to be specific.
Throw in the pink glove. That's what
Pink
makes
glove.
right.
Real specific.
That makes it modus operandi. I'm being serious.
He put a pink glove on.
That's relevant
to
now.
match his shirt.
Right.
Open hand slapped Robert in the ear.
Yeah.
Right-handed.
Right.
And I'm here to testify that he did the same thing to me, and that I'm not here to show. And now the court's going, wait a minute. You bring in people, but I don't want you trying to put forth some kind of idea in the jury's head that he has a propensity to do this. Okay, because I don't want that. I don't want the jury thinking Tony's he's an a-hole. He's got a propensity.
So how do you parse that?
He's got a propensity for open palm slapping people.
Right.
So now I think I'm trying to sort of bring you in on the legal side, but so now I guess one lawyer's arguing, no, we're not going for propensity. We're just talking about the pink glove.
Right.
We're saying he put on a pink glove and did that. So we're trying to show it's his modus of operandi. It's the way he does it.
Right.
But not his propensity.
But
this is hard.
So what I would do as a judge is I'd say, all right, I'm fine. I'm going to limit your testimony. You don't need to bring in 5 girls, 6 girls. We'll bring in 1, maybe 2 girls to show the modus operandi, which is what they did with Bill Cosby. No, Bill Cosby. Yes, they did it with Bill Cosby also. They brought in 1 or 2 girls to show modus operandi. In the Bill Cosby case, he was slipping Quaaludes and Benadryl pills to girls. So they brought in other girls to back up Andrea Constad.
Yep.
That was the original girl, to back up the fact that she knocked out and she felt woozy and that he was doing this. So they used that. Cosby aside, by the way, Cosby was overturned for other reasons. But in this case, it was overturned strictly because of Molyneux.
Molyneux case.
The
Molyneux rule.
The Molyneux ruling, which is a 100-year ruling that says you can't do that. And let me ask you a question. If you can't do it in New York, why could you do it in California? Can you explain that to me legally? So I'm a lawyer. Why is it allowed in New York, but not allowed in New York, but allowed in California?
So this safeguard of Molyneux, we don't have it in California?
No. It's called 1109.
Wow.
Yeah. So now it's going to come back to California.
So like you said, this hugely empowers women over men in terms of the current standing of the legal system. It gives them a certain lever they could use against men should they want to.
It's a lever in the sense that if they didn't in the past come forward, it gives them an out to come forward in the future. But as a defendant, me, as a guy, and as a lawyer, I don't like that.
It's a little scary.
It's extremely scary. Now I'm bringing that against you as a prior bad act. Then I'm bringing other girls as prior bad acts. You don't remember any of this stuff.
And the jury's hearing it all.
Yeah, the jury hears this. You don't remember it all. And then
you could literally say, I don't even know this woman, or maybe we did go on a date,
yeah, good
but
luck
I
with
don't
that.
remember
Good luck with saying don't remember, because the jury's going to think you're lying. Why would the girls make this up? Of
course.
That's the number one thing. Whenever a girl accuses you, the number one thing a jury always tells me when I interview them, when I lose, when I go to trial, I say, why did you convict my client? Why would the girl lie? Why would she say all these things if it wasn't true? We heard your guy deny it, but obviously he's going to deny it because he doesn't want to go to jail. But when I took a look at that complaining witness and she started to cry and her hands shook a lot, and she talked about the details of your client's hairy stomach and his smelly armpits, we believed her. I mean, that's pretty detailed. And that's all you need is just a he said, she said case, and the guy's toast.
I feel like when you zoom out from this Harvey Weinstein case and you look at the big picture, it seems like we needed a sort of a Me Too movement to happen. It kind of came. There was way too many instances of men using like
100%
a professional power or a position of authority to just I guess pressure women in the wrong way, right? Like in the wrong
way. Illegal way.
Like in illegal, that this is now it's circular. Is it wrong or illegal? I mean,
okay.
If we call it illegal, but like, I say ethically wrong in terms of...
Just to be clear, if you're pressuring somebody to have sex and it's non-consensual, it's illegal.
Fair. But I'm saying like that we needed sort of a tornado of Me Too to come in and kind of clean house a little. I would say that many probably rather innocent men got swept up in that too, because that's how tornadoes work. Is it just
Collateral damage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put it out there.
There's a couple of houses that blew away that shouldn't have blown away.
Me Too was not intricate surgery. Okay. It was a pretty bludgeon. It was a broad.
Like a sledgehammer to a watermelon.
It was a sledgehammer to America, bro. It was a sledgehammer to men. Come on.
Okay.
But like, I think we needed
Rightfully
it.
so, though.
I think we needed it.
Yeah, we deserved it. I mean,
think
not me, not you.
I think women deserved it.
But our gender, I think we have to own up as our gender. We deserved it. Come on, that's what it came down
on
to.
behalf of women that we love, like our wives, our daughters, our nieces, our best friends at work, and our so many colleagues. Like, of course, like it's good that they kind of were able to witness a little bit of a correction, let's call it.
Yeah.
But like any other social movement, it overcorrects. Like any other cultural wave, it overcorrects.
You're talking about the pendulum.
But it's just, it seems to just be the way things work. Like the water comes towards the beach and then it overshoots and it goes onto land and then it has to pull back again. And that's what happened with Me Too. It went too far. I think the moment it went too far, that's my opinion.
That's Tony's opinion.
I have some evidence.
That's your opinion. I
have some evidence.
I'm the neutral arbiter of facts. I'm only here to analyze it. So
here's my evidence and what gives me optimism. Okay. Because look, I'm a fan of what happened with Me Too. I'm happy that women got to have that moment where the wave crested and cleared out a lot of that bullshit, literal toxicity that was happening from some masculine men. Honestly, I don't even think that's masculine. I don't think I don't call it toxic masculinity because to me, there's nothing masculine about what Harvey Weinstein is doing. Sitting in a seat of power and like using that to physically abuse a young starlet.
Scumbag bully.
That's not masculine.
That's what it is. It's bullying.
Yeah. Masculinity would be running in that room and helping her and beating the shit out of him.
100%.
That would be masculine. But 100%. Anyway, I think that we got to a peak in that where it was believe all women. Do you remember that? We got to a point where Me Too started and then it was hashtag Me Too, hashtag Me Too, hashtag Me Too. We had everybody going down, the guys getting accused, being cleared out.
Well, that's why I was saying the pressure from the judge. You asked me
that's what I'm saying.
Why did the judge allow the witnesses? I think there was a lot of pressure.
It might have been
social pressure.
It probably intersected culturally and socially and in this wave of social justice with this idea of believe all women. That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea.
Okay, so I'm going to defend the Me Too movement, and I will tell you that
I'm defending Me Too, but I think believe all women was the point where it overshot.
So if I was a prosecutor, I would not discount what the complaining witness is telling me. It's just a bad public policy to start questioning the complaining witness. So if this really happened, why didn't you report it earlier? Or saying, I saw your social media account. You're dating an older guy and you called him a sugar daddy.
Okay.
It's basically victimizing or re-victimizing, traumatizing the victim.
Okay.
I think the prosecution should independently filter everybody and question everybody and come to a conclusion, their own conclusion, whether or not they're actual victims or not, and then prosecute.
Okay, so you can ask them questions. You have to question the woman who's making allegations against a man. You can't just believe all women. You have to hold her to some hard questions, and her evidence has to withstand that.
But the question shouldn't be condescending. The question shouldn't be in such a way that it implies that you don't believe her.
I see what you mean.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it should be open-ended. What happened? Tell me. I'm sorry that happened to you. Can you tell me more?
Instead of accusing...
why didn't you do this? Why did you wait so long? And that's what they were doing in the Weinstein case with most of the people, especially in Andre Constat's case. The original prosecutor in that case Bruce Castor didn't even want to file it because she waited so long and she waited and saw an attorney, so he just blew her off. Mm-hmm. But I think that was a mistake also, because you could be both. You could be a plaintiff and a victim. Mm-hmm. Just because you're suing your rapist doesn't mean you're not telling the truth.
Agreed. 100%.
But Bruce Castor didn't agree with that. Dropped the Bill Cosby case. And he made a public announcement. I'm not going to prosecute him because Andre Constad's testimony is questionable because of those reasons.
Right. But clearly, since that case, this wave has crested because we had Depp v. Heard. We had Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
Oh my Lord, you brought that up.
I have to bring it up because to me, I'm bringing evidence.
Jeez.
The The end of Believe All Women was Amber Heard.
Oh, I'm not touching that one.
I'm just saying that was the end of Believe All Women. And can I say I'm optimistic because looking at it as a backing out, right? If space aliens are watching our culture and they're like, there's this kind with the XY and then there's this other kind, which is XX. I see them. Space aliens. What the hell's with these two groups? Sometimes they love each other. Sometimes they're fighting. I feel like they would say, we went through a tough time between the genders with the whole Me Too, and there needed to be a reckoning. There needed to be, and it happened. But I think the space aliens would look at it and go, oh, we see what happened. The power totally shifted into this other group, and no, they're kind of clearing house now. Heads are rolling. It's the French Revolution. Heads are rolling. The powerful are being beheaded. Oh, wait, it seems like it's going too far now. Now it's going too far. Oh, whoa, now that they're storming the gates, this is getting crazy. And then you got the Amber Heard moment is where that whole thing stops. It's like where women, I heard more women tell me like, bro, she's lying. She's lying. I can't believe her. More women said that to me than men. And I found that refreshing. I actually found it refreshing because I'm like, this is cool. This is like we're getting beyond the genders. We love each other again. I'm just trying to speak anthropologically here. And sort of like, I think the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing calmed the movement down a little, where it was like, okay, cool. There was a reckoning. We did Believe All Women for a sec. And now we realize we can't do that. That's also crazy because they're also human and they could lie and steal and be toxic as well. So why don't we just be more human about this? Let's look at people more equally. Men can lie, women can lie. Let's try to get the evidentiary rules more in line with that level of fairness, right? And I think in the Harvey Weinstein case, oddly, we kind of land on that, right? We kind of land on that where the appeals court goes, we would have liked to believe all those women and we did let them in, but the law says you can't smear him with that. Sorry. And now we're going to overturn.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that's a good segue because in that case, in the Weinstein case, they actually said that they concluded that the trial court erroneously admitted testimony of uncharged alleged prior sexual acts against persons other than the complainants of the underlying crimes because the testimony served no material non-propensity purpose. So basically what that means is that you just stack too much against the guy. The wave that you were talking about.
You're creating a propensity.
That wave that you were talking about the wave crashed into people's house. It went from the beach to the sand to hitting the house.
It did.
To going inside the living room, going through the living room, through the back, washing away. So the court is not saying you guys went too far. We get it. And by the way, the court is saying go after Harvey. We don't have a problem with that. Just when you meet Harvey and you're going to box him, make sure it's just one boxer. And you box fairly, and you don't bring in 7 other boxers that Harvey didn't know about, that Harvey didn't have time to prepare, and he can't correspond to.
Right. Again, we don't want to defend Harvey in this situation.
No, not at all.
He's so hard to defend. I mean, as a man, he's impossible to defend. He's not masculine. He's not toxic masculine.
He's not my cup of tea.
He's emasculine. He's about as emasculine as you could be in the way his behavior, his attitude towards women.
If he was on the street working at 7-Eleven, he wouldn't have caught any of those model girls and his A-list actors.
Right.
He's using the Miramax umbrella to bait and dangle carrots in front of pretty girls and use the casting couch defense to basically say, oh yeah, these were all consensual girls. And maybe some of them were consenting under the guise that they would get jobs. But I would say that's deception. I would say that's not consent. When you have to trick somebody into consent, I don't think that's consent. I think that vitiates consent.
How do you trick somebody into consent?
All right, I'll get you a job at the movie. You'll be the next A-list actor on the TV. You sleep with me, and then I forget about you.
So if I sleep with you in that instance, have you tricked me into consent? Or have I consented to the actual act? Even though I've got a weird motive behind it, because I'm like, he's going to put me in a movie.
That's a question for the jury. The jury decides that. I don't think anybody would take it to trial in that situation. In fact, I will tell you when they re-prosecute Harvey Weinstein, what they're going to do, they're going to have a tough time convicting the guy.
They are.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about it from a karmic sense because the guy's got a case in California, and California's stubborn about 1109. They're not going to get rid of that, and Molyneux's not going to apply to California. So from a spiritual sense, let everybody be calm to know that California is not going to change the law, But in New York, I think they got a problem.
So from a spiritual sense, should I be calm to know that California has unfair evidentiary laws against?
I believe so. I
Against
believe
men?
it's unfair evidentiary laws against men. However, in a weird karmic
It's
sense,
just where we are right now.
in a weird karmic sense, it's going to work with Harvey Weinstein,
Yeah.
but I disagree with that law.
But the rest of us guys, just behave while you're in California.
Because not. But hold on a second. Not only behave though. It goes back to college. Your prom night.
Also, don't have a bunch of women that hate you that want to bring you down.
It's not only that.
Because if they do, they will.
forget that.
They can.
Forget that. Let's just say you right now, let's just say at some point we have 1 million subscribers on this podcast and you become ultra famous and everybody knows you. How are you going to stop somebody from your prom night saying that you didn't sexually assault them? How are you going to stop that from happening?
So it happened to a really good buddy of mine from high school, man. It literally happened to a really good buddy of mine whose podcast, his podcast got, I guess, semi-popular, and then he was going to host Jeopardy. He got the job to host Jeopardy. Michael Richards, my buddy Mike Richards.
Seinfeld?
Mike Richards, different Mike Richards.
Oh, okay.
Not that Mike Richards.
I was gonna say, I know Michael.
This Mike Richards, amazing guy, like really funny, talented guy in my high school class.
Yeah.
Our talent show was like me making videos with him acting in them. And he's just awesome and funny. And I'm sure he had a podcast where he said, I haven't seen his podcast too much, but it did make big news a few years ago because he was about to get the job hosting Jeopardy.
No way.
He was a perfect host for Jeopardy. He hosted a couple episodes. You could go watch it.
Wow.
He did a great job. And such a likable, funny, like charismatic guy. And then some people wrote into the station. Some people started sort of uncovering his sins from the past. His sins from the past, bro, were so not bad.
What was it?
Dude, he did a podcast before Jeopardy, like we're doing here. He had a couple girls on the podcast with him.
What did they say?
Nothing. They joked around, then he joked around, and then he'd call them like podcast hoes or like hoes in the podcast booth, and they laughed, and he laughed. They joked around, bro. Can you believe it?
How dare he?
He joked around with chicks, and they laughed, and he laughed. Okay? So now years later, someone digs that up and says he's misogynistic, he's a anti-female, and obviously there's not a ounce of truth to that, but he loses his gig. He loses the Jeopardy gig, man.
And Jeopardy has a right not to hire somebody that calls somebody a podcast hoe. They have a right.
They do have
By the way, I don't disagree with that.
They do have a right.
I don't disagree with that.
It's not the reason why they unhired him. I would say the mob rule that rose up against him in an unjustified way, given the tiny thing that he said.
You say it's unjustified.
Well, I think the woman he spoke to would say it was unjustified.
Well,
it's directed at her.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. If I was the company, I'd research him and I find out he said that, I might pass and get somebody cleaner and be like, that guy's cleaner.
Okay, but who is there that's never made any bad statement in their history?
Nobody, but there's nothing unjustified or unfair about a company rejecting an employee for saying something on a podcast that they disliked.
Agreed. They had every right to fire him.
Right.
I agree.
100%.
I think they never would have had we as a society not taken this overly puritanical view on.
Hold on a second.
Overly puritanical.
That guy has other outlets. That's not the only outlet.
That was the one, man.
There'll be a show like Joe Rogan. Well, they'd love to have him on.
That was the one, man. He executive produced that show for many years.
You know what, Tony? One door closes and the other opens.
Mike, come on the podcast.
I'm just saying, like, I would.
I'm going to see him at a reunion soon.
I wouldn't worry about it if I were him.
worry about it. I don't think it was fair, and I don't think it was cool.
It wasn't fair, but you know what? He's going to find something. It's going to lead him to something else. It always does. C'est la vie. That's life.
He will be fine.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the indications of how broadly this tornado swept through and how many people it swept away. Al Franken.
Yeah, grabbing the breasts of somebody while they were sleeping and taking a picture of it.
He didn't grab.
Fondled.
No,
it was a joke. He said it was a joke.
He didn't even touch. He mimed. It was mimed.
But it looked like he grabbed.
Well, it looked from the angle the camera.
He mimed it. Yeah, he mimed.
He mimed it, and he laughed, and it was like jokes.
And by the way, he did the honorable thing. He withdrew from Congress, from Senate, right?
You call it honorable. I call it idiotic.
Well, now it's idiotic.
It was idiotic in the moment.
Back then it was a big deal. You're not in the heat.
He read the Communist Manifesto apology. I now understand that my actions were wrong. After much reflection, I now have learned my ways that I need to do better. That apology doesn't work.
So you're saying he came under the heel of the Me Too movement?
That's what happened. Yeah.
Wow.
The General Mao social movement of obey or die, it got him, and he read the apology. I mean,
that's your interpretation.
Many celebrities have read that obligatory apology.
It
doesn't really work because it's fake. He was a former comedian.
Yeah, for SNL, Saturday Night Live.
I think
writer also.
Once a comedian, always a comedian.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, you're right. Maybe Me Too went too far with Al Franken.
With some people, right?
Maybe he went too far from Johnny Depp. Maybe.
Well, I think Johnny Depp was a force which helped correct the movement. It was a corrective force.
Johnny Depp was where the Me Too movement got back on track?
I think it hit the wall. I think it hit the Depp wall. I mean,
Do you
because
think that Amber Heard actually used the Me Too movement to empower herself to go after Johnny Depp?
Yeah, I think that, and that's why you're asking me. And you're right. Of course, I think that. I feel like, God, I don't want to speak for women, but many of the women in my life, for sure, were mistrusting of Amber Heard on the stand. When I kind of just asked them their take on it, that's the vibe I got. And then the overall outcome seemed to indicate that the public opinion, not that that's the ultimate litmus test, I don't think people were on her side. It feels like people were like, okay, we believed all women, and then we got this blatant lies, and sort of like, she seems to be the abuser. So wait, that can happen too? Actually, like, historically, granted, men have been abusive and been put in positions of power and have abused their power. Shocking, humans abusing power. And now there's a woman who's actually going to do the same thing. She's going to abuse her power by hijacking Me Too and trying to throw it at this powerful celebrity, Johnny Depp. I think that's what seemed to have happened, and it kind of, the wave pulled back. After that, the wave pulled back a bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the wave did pull back after Johnny Depp because people saw how she was exaggerating, crying, and her affect was really bad. Like, there was an example of she was crying when her dog got stung by a bee. And when I saw her reaction and she was like crying, I said, "What's wrong with you?"
She wasn't believable.
It just seemed like she was off.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, and I'm not protecting Johnny Depp because as a man, it just seemed to me that he seemed, even though he had flaws.
Yeah.
Even though he seemed like he admitted he had an alcohol problem.
Yep.
He admitted that he wasn't a nice husband, terrible husband. He admitted that.
Yeah.
He admitted all his faults. But I think that Amber Heard's contentions against him, based on the videos and everything that I saw, it didn't rise to the level of what happened in Harvey Weinstein. I don't even want to put them together.
You can't.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Amber Heard doesn't belong in the breath of the Me Too movement.
No.
Rose McGowan went through serious with Harvey Weinstein, and Ashley Judd, and those people went. Amber Heard, come on, give me a break. Things didn't go right because he didn't show up to a party, or he didn't pay attention, or he called her something. He stomped on her in an airplane allegedly one time. It's not the same. It's the gravamen of the charge isn't the same as what was going on in the Me Too movement. So I would never in a million years put Amber Heard in the same breath as the Me Too movement.
It's almost opposites. It's one hijacking the other and taking it too far, right?
Maybe I'm not gonna comment because, like I said, I'm a neutral arbiter of the facts. I'm a lawyer, but you're the guy. You're the public opinion guy.
Listen, when we look at a lot of these Me Too cases, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, you could throw Michael Jackson in there. It was a little bit before Me Too. Vince McMahon, lately.
WWF, Vince McMahon, the owner of WWF. Yeah, he's had a lot of sexual harassment claims against him. Right? Correct. Yeah.
Brett Kavanaugh, remember that Supreme Court justice?
Oh yes, of course.
Brett Kavanaugh. There was like in the height of the Me Too movement.
Right.
Came the Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah. who was, by the way, Brett Kavanaugh's accuser was the lawyer was spearheaded by Michael Avenatti, who is in jail right now. I don't know if you know that.
I did know that.
Yeah, so he's the guy. I mean, I wouldn't put too much stock into what Michael Avenatti put in front of Congress.
He's the guy who he's the guy who brought the charges against Brett Kavanaugh to get him not confirmed as a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, Avenatti basically brought this lady in to say that Brett Kavanaugh, committed sexual acts against her.
Yeah, and specifically, if I remember, because I did pay some attention to that testimony, she said that they were at a party in high school.
Right.
He ran up the stairs. She was there. He kind of pushed her into a room and maybe back onto a bed.
Right.
And then I don't remember if she said that he physically did much.
She insinuated I think she said she blacked out. But
no actual.
But the
physical
thing is,
accusation.
Brett Kavanaugh is such a geek. He actually calendared everything from like 8 years old. He brought his calendar.
Didn't.
Yeah,
did?
you know that?
So he had so his calendar refuted her claims on that.
Yeah, he brought a calendar from from the beginning of time.
Bro, he should be a Supreme Court justice.
And he actually said he has a habit of every day writing down, like he read like when he was 19. I had 3 beers today because I passed my math exam. He had everything on the calendar. So he journaled everything meticulously. And zealously, and he pointed that out, that didn't happen. I put down on here, but who knows?
You got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to look at these claims and just, there has to be a bullshit test inside all of us. Like, okay, does that seem like he shouldn't be our Supreme Court justice? What's the vibe we're getting here? So this lady's saying that, and like what actually seems like it happened. You compare that to Harvey Weinstein, 2 extremes. Harvey Weinstein, you listen to some of the stuff and you're like, okay, he should go to prison. He committed these crimes. Brett Kavanaugh, no, he should still become Supreme Court justice. So
maybe now I'm not gonna interject my opinion on that. But I will tell you, I think the original Me Too movement started, and I'm gonna be the first to say this, with Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill.
Yeah, way back. Yeah.
That's the original Me Too movement, when she came forward and said that the justice, that Clarence Thomas basically committed sexual assault against her. That's when it started. So this has been culminating since Anita Hill. I will make an argument that, this started with Anita Hill and worked its way up through time. They say 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward. So that's what we're at when we came all the way up to Rose McGowan. We came up to Ashley Judd. We came up to Harvey Weinstein. We came up to his accusers. And then there was so many of it. I think that was the dam that broke. I think that's what happened, that Harvey Weinstein was the last straw.
Yeah.
Women were just fed up. They were like, we don't care about power anymore. We don't care about Hollywood. We're going to tell all of you, America, what's really going on. And we want you to know and do something about it, because we're just tired of it.
Yeah. And I think that happened.
It did.
So now if this hunch is correct that the Me Too wave has kind of crested and is now receding, maybe on the back of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, is that why maybe now we're seeing, and I'm looking at it not legally but culturally now, we get the reversal of this conviction of Harvey Weinstein. We get the reversal of the conviction of Bill Cosby. Is that the wave receding?
I don't think so. I look at it like fuel and gas. Think of it like a rocket ship. It's going to have a lot of power, right? When the rocket goes up, maybe it's not 1,000 pounds per pressure of going up. Maybe it's only 800 pounds of pressure going up. It's just the pressure is a little less. It's gauged a little bit more. It's more calibrated is a good word. I think now we're calibrated. You might be right.
Right.
The calibration was completely off. We overcalibrated.
Now we had to pull back.
Right.
We carbureted the engine. Now we got to pull back.
Right.
It's a correction.
It's kind of like the delay you get on your shower when you turn it on hot. Maybe you turn it on and for 3 seconds it's like scalding hot, and then you realize you overcalibrated it.
Right.
And now you bring it back a notch. So that's what I think is going on with the Me Too movement. I don't think it's gone away. The Me Too movement brought awareness to the world about what's going on. Real awareness. Everybody knew or heard about this stuff going on. And Tony, let me tell you
100%.
So I'll be honest with you. I didn't know about this stuff going on in Hollywood. You're in Hollywood. I didn't know. I have a friend, as you know who that friend is. I'm not going to mention his name on the show. That's on TV. You'd recognize him. He's a constant character on television. He does movies with Bruce Willis. He's done movies with Brad Pitt. Very well-known, I say well-known, solid actor. he told me, his wife told me when I met her, and I didn't believe this. I asked her, I was like, so what's going on with your career? She's like, she told me like very flippantly, it's not going to go where because I don't sleep with directors. I don't sleep with producers. And he came in and said, honey, don't say that. That's not nice. And she said with her little spunk, you know, it's true. This is 23 years ago.
Listen,
I didn't believe it because I thought she was exaggerating. Come on. But then when I saw Harvey Weinstein and that thing happened, I said, wow, this is really happening.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the Hollywood culture. I'm not in Hollywood. I'm just a lawyer and working.
Look, of course, a director could abuse their power on set because you're the kind of the head honcho on set, right? Anyone who's a head honcho in any position is going to be attractive to certain women. When there's a guy who's the leader of an organization, that's going to be attractive.
Sure.
When there's a guy who's the CEO of a company, that's going to be attractive. When there's a guy who's
power attracts.
the quarterback of the football team, that's going to be attractive.
These are power positions
Right.
you're mentioning.
So yeah, of course there's going to be that power. It's just that it's, you know, most men would probably not, I don't know, is that correct? I would want to say most men would not maybe like see that as the avenue to do sexual manipulation, or because I don't know, like, because isn't it unattractive if you know the person's not into you and you're kind of tricking them into it like that? In a way that cancels out
Talking about Weinstein?
Yeah, like that cancels out the attractiveness.
He doesn't care. He's a predator. Predators,
Yeah.
listen, I don't know if you know, but Weinstein checked himself into rehab. He never said what the rehab
For what,
was.
sex addiction?
He wasn't a drug addict, so
But
what do you
you
think
know,
it was?
the part-
So all I'm telling you is the guy was getting, you know, hormone levels that you and I don't understand. And he was, you know, he was with beautiful women
What
all the
hormone
time.
levels did he have that we don't understand?
Well, I'm not in rehab. I mean, I don't need rehabilitation.
You're not flooded with testosterone?
Not to the point where I got to force people to do massages on me.
Okay.
And apparently the guy, he had a beautiful wife.
Right.
He had a gorgeous model wife, and apparently that wasn't good enough. So I'm just saying that he had a problem.
He had a problem.
I don't have that problem. I'm happy with my wife.
Right.
But I'm assuming that if I needed to go and conquer women every day, risk my family, risk my marriage, risk my job, I got a problem.
Right.
And I think the guy had a sex problem. And I think it didn't help that he was in an industry where all the girls were gorgeous.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like putting a kid in a candy shop and telling him you can't have any Skittles today.
And this is where it gets tricky because 100%. And this is where it gets, he was in a candy shop. But it's tricky because also there was sort of these unspoken rules in Hollywood too, especially legacy old school Hollywood. I don't think I've gotten to sort of like, it's way before our time.
Yeah.
Like, and where this elite level of power did lead to sexual favors, and it was kind of known, and like it seems like everybody knew. The women also seem to have known about these kind of patterns.
Yeah.
And some of these women, I'm not going to say all, have willingly put themselves in that position as well, knowingly, and have acquiesced to what's going to happen.
So have you?
I'm not condoning it, but my question is that consent or is that not consent? They're acquiescing. They're putting themselves.
That's a factual issue.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me right now as a lawyer, you're asking me, is that consent? Is that not consent? 12 people are going to decide that. That's a factual issue.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to argue that to the jury. You're going to argue as a lawyer that was not consensual.
She went there. She went to the hotel room. He did say, I'm upstairs in a bathrobe.
Right.
She did go up the elevator into the room. He did say it's just us. She didn't leave. I'm not putting the blame on her. I'm just simply asking, is there consent or is there not consent?
Well, so that's what they're going to
Again, the factual question.
That's what they're going to argue. And Donna Rotana, who's the attorney, argued to the jury that was completely consensual because what else this is what Donna Rotana said.
Is that the defense attorney?
Yeah. Not what I said. I don't want the internet going, ape crap on me. But she said, what do you expect when you're going to go up to a guy's room and he opens a door and is in his robe? What are you expecting? Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Like she's basically saying you either knew or should have known based on going up to his room that you're putting yourself in that position. Now, the Me Too movement is saying, how dare you? You're basically victim shaming. You're blaming the victim blaming. They're saying that if you go into the room, so what? Maybe it's just she was so interested in the work with Weinstein, she was willing to do whatever.
Yep.
right? So
And
it's
sometimes artists are crazy. They're in bathrobes. I mean, maybe
Right.
some artist is painting and he's like, come on
Right.
in, honey. We're going to look at it.
and that's the argument. That's the argument of the prosecutor.
But and
You
it's
just
not,
argued as that's what the prosecutor said.
for me personally, it's not the should have known. It's the known part that is kind of bugs me. Like if she knew, that kind of takes the edge off that crime a little bit.
Well,
for
none
me.
of them
if
would
she
not-
should have known, that's not good
Well,
enough.
none
for
of
me.
them know. If they know that, God forbid, they're going to go and get sexually harassed, they're not going to go. But the
Well,
argument,
because then it definitionally would not be.
it would not be
or
because we could
harassment.
consent. If
So
you're-
then your claim is none of these women knew what was going to happen up there.
their claim is that they didn't know what was going to happen up
Right.
there. Their claim is that when they went there, they were just talking about a job. They thought it was strange that he invited them, but oh well, it's Hollywood.
Right.
I'll roll with the flow.
Right.
You know? So they went up there. The Donna Rotono's argument, Harvey Weinstein's attorney, was no. You knew what the culture was.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that people have to sleep with directors and
Mm-hmm.
prosecutors, producers all the time to get business. That's the culture. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a terrible defense because even if it's true, right?
Well, it is true that was the culture at some
But
point.
even if it is true, it's a terrible defense because you're condoning the behavior.
yeah,
And you're
that should change.
and you're asking the jury to forgive the person based on bad
Right.
behavior.
Right.
It's
well,
not.
yeah, it's complicated, right? Because you're asking a jury to say, hey, you're kind of making this really tough argument to the jury, which is, I get it, Hollywood sucks, and I get that it's awful that all the people knew that this was going on. The only point is the girl knew too. And
girl-
so she
the
went
girl-
up there knowing.
The girl played ball.
She played ball,
Right.
and so therefore,
Right.
you shouldn't throw this guy in jail.
That's
Now,
right.
I'm going to pull myself out of that and say,
Yeah.
you probably still should put him in jail because even though everybody knew, that was still wrong. Like we want a system in place where guys can't abuse women like that, even if the women know
But
about
is
it.
it a crime or is it a lawsuit? So
Well, now it's a crime.
So what you're talking about is you don't want that to happen because you're saying you want to put somebody in jail, right? So Harvey Weinstein's lawyer is saying it's not even sexual harassment because you know this is a part of the culture of Hollywood.
And I'm trying to say, even if you
And
know,
I'm not saying I agree with it, by the way.
I'm
I don't agree with that.
I'm trying to say, I may be wrong,
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to say is that maybe even though you know it's the culture of Hollywood, and even though you accept it's the culture of Hollywood, it still should be a crime.
Agreed.
Because we want to correct that behavior.
100% agreed.
So we want to pressure people to behave differently.
100% agreed.
We want to take away that power that men have to sexually manipulate women who are beneath them, either in.
Well, hold on a second. I take issue with that. What happens if a powerful female producer wants to make love to an 18-year-old boy and forces him? Shouldn't it also apply to men as well, not just women? It's not. I don't think
probably should.
It obviously doesn't happen as
It's just
much.
not as much of
There's
a problem.
an imbalance of power, obviously.
Not a problem.
Right. Not a problem that we know of. Maybe it's something going on.
We've only heard of it
We've only
really.
heard of it with women, right?
Well,
no, actually, that's not true. We've heard
gay
it with,
men,
We've heard it with Kevin Spacey.
gay men and women.
Kevin Spacey was allegedly harassing waiters.
So the aggressor is still a man.
Yeah. Well, the aggressor is still a man. Right.
Generally, that seems to be the case. right?
100%.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't curtail the law to say it just applies to females.
No.
Right. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
It should be a gender neutral law.
It should be gender neutral.
Right.
And
it
then
shouldn't be a binary law.
It
Like
should
if
be
you're a man, it should go this way. If you're a female, going this. That's all I'm saying.
Probably right. I mean, it should
Yeah.
be applied as needed, right?
Well, it should be applied fairly and neutrally.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a man that is experiencing that same type of criminal behavior from a woman, the woman gets prosecuted. And if a guy is doing it to a woman, the guy gets prosecuted.
What examples do we have of this going the other direction?
As far as a woman doing it to a man,
Yeah, there's gotta be some.
teachers, school teachers taking advantage of children.
And they've been prosecuted.
Absolutely, it happens all the
And
time.
they should be. They should be.
Teacher, there are females. You could Google it.
Yeah.
Google high school teacher goes to prison for molesting child.
Yeah.
And you know what's weird? They're mostly blonde. From the South. It's like Oklahoma. It's like South Dakota. You Google it, they're blonde. I don't know what it is. And they're pretty girls
some
too.
pattern out there.
I don't
with
know.
that?
It's
That's
just
so
a
strange.
little side footnote that I find that interesting. Just an observation.
Yeah.
But yeah, females have gone down for taking advantage of
And
students.
they should. They should.
100%. So it does
Because
happen.
that child is just too young, boy or girl. That child is too young.
I agree with that. All right.
That's abuse.
I agree
That's
with that, but there's
molestation.
some misogynistic thought out there that good for the guy. He's getting
Well,
a teacher. He's getting a teacher. What are they complaining
Listen,
about?
I could
She's
buy-
beautiful. That
I
kind
could
of thing.
get on board with that at a certain age. Like the guy,
Right, not at 15.
The guy's 18.
18 is cool. Yeah. I agree.
I mean, who am I to say it's cool?
Right.
If he
But
gets
15, you're still
if he gets
developing,
traumatized, that sucks.
Right.
I'm just kind of saying,
He's a big boy at that point.
were you traumatized?
And
bro?
by legally speaking, he's an adult, so it's fine.
Right.
I get that. But to answer your question, yeah, of course, women get in trouble too for that. You don't think women have slept with younger, good-looking guys in high school? It's not immune
Right.
to certain genders.
No.
So
it's
what
just human behavior.
So what I'm saying is, if you're going to change the law, just make it fair. Don't make it like against the women. It's got to be gender neutral, obviously.
Okay, so currently, from what I'm hearing from you, is that in California, we're not yet fully gender neutral, at least on this evidentiary issue of bringing prior bad acts in. Maybe that is gender neutral.
You
They're
say
just
the
letting
word
it-
gender neutral.
Right.
The law says we're protecting women.
It literally calls women out?
No, it doesn't call women out. 1109 under the evidence code basically says that it allows the opportunity for a prosecutor to use prior bad acts to show that the defendant may have acted in conformity with his modus operandi. Translated, he acted in a way that could show the jury that this is his pattern and behavior. So if he did it with girls A, B, C, and D, it probably happened to those girls. It happened in this case, in the defendant's case.
And that could be used against a woman defendant as well.
In California,
It could.
yeah, but that never happens.
It never happens. But
Yeah.
so currently we're in a state legally, evidentiarily, where men are a little bit at a disadvantage only because most of the time these lawsuits are brought against men.
Criminal cases.
Criminal cases.
Yes.
Sorry, I misspoke. Not civil. Criminal cases. Most of the time.
And
these are-
civil, and civil.
and civil mostly are brought against men.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Are we okay with that? Like, my thought is the pendulum is still swinging, so I'm kind of okay with it. I'm like, hey, ladies, you have this extra weapon now against us. I'm kind of okay with it. I'm just kind of like, girls, use it sparingly, please, and be nice.
Right.
Like, I'm okay with it because I want to even the playing field.
Right,
and I'm
right.
also kind of saying, like, can you ladies please be fair?
But see, it's not the ladies that are being fair. It's the prosecutor that has the discretion. You should be
Right.
begging the prosecutor, please be fair with this law.
Gotcha.
I don't know what's going to happen with Weinstein. And there's another snag with Weinstein. So the Weinstein jury was told the modus operandi, they brought in the modus operandi to show that he's done this before. They brought in a conviction. They knew about the conviction of New York. So if the conviction was unfair, doesn't that affect the California case?
Wow. So part of
So in other words, if he wasn't supposed to be convicted in New York and the jury in California used that to convict him, don't you think the California case will be overturned based on that?
doesn't that somehow undo the dominoes from falling? But can it be? Can it be overturned now?
Oh, they're going to try to overturn the California case.
His same legal team is now going to come to California and be
100%.
like,
Because they're going to say, because you used the New York conviction
as a cornerstone
as
of
a
yours,
cornerstone of this case, and the conviction in New York was unjust,
it's gone.
and the jury therefore relied substantially on the conviction in New York, and therefore it should be completely nullified because they relied on a illegal conviction.
Wow.
They're going to make that argument.
That seems like that argument could hold.
I think so.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So then what? Would he be completely
No,
out?
no.
He's still facing a lot of...
Let the internet know he's not going home anytime
He's
soon.
going nowhere.
They're prosecuting him again in New York. They're going to use the same two females against him
So they're
without
like-
the extra sauce and the extra ketchup and the extra lettuce and a tomato.
Get out.
It's going to be a regular burger, a Weinstein burger, okay? And the Weinstein burger consists just the meat, no, like I said, no lettuce, tomato, onions, or anything, okay?
Right.
And if he gets prosecuted, they're going to get prosecuted just on that meat and the meat, okay?
How are you going to find an impartial jury at this point?
Well, they're going to have to screen them. They're going to say, do you know anything about Weinstein? Have you heard about the appeal?
Have you
No?
been in a
Okay, good.
cave? Come on over.
Yeah, they're going to have to find people in the cave, exactly. And if they
Wow.
don't find people in the cave, then they can't do it.
So they're going to try to re-prosecute that case.
Yeah, they're
And
going
yet
to.
They're going to try to overturn the prosecution here in California. So it's all basically like still happening.
Yeah, but what's interesting is if he's, here's one thing that I'm not so sure about. If he's reconvicted, let's say they undid the conviction. If he's convicted, then I would make an argument that no harm, no foul in California. He was still convicted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that
I'm saying
attempt to overturn would go away.
I think so, and I'm not an appellate specialist. I would think that if you were to show no harm, no foul, that he was already convicted, he was going to be convicted, maybe the appellate court's going to say no harm, no foul. But if they don't convict him and is found not guilty, California's got a big problem.
Why does California have a problem?
Because they introduced a conviction that was illegal to the jury, and the jury relied on that, and they convicted him on that. Therefore, the entire verdict, in my opinion, is tainted.
Got it. And then he would have a good appellate argument to reverse
An excellent appellate
and
argument.
then maybe go to the Supreme Court of California.
100% will go to
the Supreme Court of the United States.
I don't know about that. I think California Ninth Circuit will pick it up just the way the New York Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in New York, they picked it up and they overturned the Supreme Court, which is ironically not the highest court of appeals in New York.
Right. I remember reading about that too. So who is the highest court?
Court of Appeals.
Okay. It's oddly, it just named
It's
weird.
named weird.
Isn't like an relic from the past or something?
We could have another podcast on that.
Isn't the Ninth Circuit quite a liberal court?
Sure, but
So can you see the Ninth Circuit overturning a sexual harassment conviction on such a scumbag like Harvey Weinstein?
no,
They're not going to overturn that.
I don't think so.
But they should maybe just based on the letter of the law, like we're talking about. Although you and I both feel like this dude's a creep.
Legally speaking, well, the thing is, I think that you got to remember, laws are based on people voting on bills. Bills become law, right? So you and I propose something tomorrow. We're going to pass a bill, or we're going to introduce a bill that says no more pink T-shirts, and it goes up and it changes into a law. A bill is like, think of it like a caterpillar that hasn't become a butterfly yet. So that's a bill. So we have a law, 1109, that was passed.
Yeah.
That law was passed through legislature. They voted on it, right? So California likes this law. New York doesn't like it. It's a different demographic. So
Weird though. I thought California and New York shared this liberal.
I did too, but they have a case called Molyneux. We don't have Molyneux in California.
We need if we're ultimately going to be better evidentiarily and more fair, we're going to need a Molyneux case. But for now, we're kind of going with it because we're like, ladies, we're going to let you in to testify because we need to offset the balance.
We do have sort of a Molyneux case. I'll cite the case later. We do have something like that. But what's interesting is New York chose to accept the Molyneux case from 1901. They chose. So they said, what you did to Weinstein is wrong. Let's go back to what the justices said in 1901. We have cases like that.
Was that a New York case?
Yeah.
That's why it applies.
Right, but we have cases like that in California. We just chose to undo it with a new law called 1109, and we voted on it. So California doesn't want to undo that.
Is it limited to sexual claims?
1109 is not...
I mean, it somehow must be limited if it's this big broadening of evidentiary rules, right?
You're making me look up evidence.
No, but I know evidence law gets crazy, but...
okay.
I'm trying to stay optimistic about it.
1109 basically says that a defendant has committed and if he's committed an act... if a defendant has committed an act of domestic violence, including elder abuse, child abuse, can be used by the prosecution to help that he committed the current act of domestic violence or any specific evidence specific to 1109. Translated, let's substitute the language. If it's not domestic violence, if it's act of sexual conduct, it can be used by the prosecution to help prove that he committed the current act of domestic violence or sexual act. So
those are the two categories it's drawing.
I mean, those are the big categories. But
Somewhat
yes, 1109 could be used against you to show that you did something in the past that you were never prosecuted before.
But not carjacking.
Which I think is violative of your due process rights. So the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that our forefathers, stuck inside this piece of paper, it says that if I'm going to accuse you, Tony, of any crime, you have a right to know about it. Makes sense, right? 100%. If I'm going to say, Tony, you killed somebody, all right, let me know about it. Just don't lock me up. So I tell you. And the other thing is opportunity to be heard. You have an opportunity to say, I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to fight it. Show me the proof. Mm-hmm. In this case,
confront your accusers.
What they're saying with Molyneux and Weinstein is saying there's no prior criminal hearing. There was no notice. Other than us telling you before the trial, you didn't have an opportunity to talk to these witnesses. You didn't have an opportunity to cross-examine. And furthermore, it's violative of his right to testify.
Aren't you going to have the opportunity to cross-examine there in the moment?
Sure you are.
But that's not enough. You should have had it earlier.
Again,
you should have vetted them.
Not only that, but it stops Weinstein from taking the stand because you're introducing other acts that he may not want to talk about, that he doesn't think is relevant to talk about.
And once he starts talking about it,
opens a door.
You're already guilty just by talking about it.
Right. So you're shackling the defendant's right to protect himself because the court is bringing in collateral issues or side issues that were never litigated.
It's amazing stuff because it's so complex because the law is trying to weigh these really difficult
balance balancing
like
test.
creepy ass defendant that we all want to see in prison,
Right.
that we know in our heart did these bad things to women. At the same time, evidentiary rules to try to not allow extra tainted, extra crap to smear him. Like
Yeah.
extra crap. You don't need it for the jury. Try to keep it the relevant crap.
Yeah, so I think his attorney said it best. Arthur Aidala said that although Weinstein is not above the law, he's certainly not below the law,
Interesting.
which means that he should be afforded the same fair rights, no matter how much you hate him.
Right.
Even if he's a scumbag, even if
Right.
Adolf Hitler was put on trial, and we know he ordered the hit of 6 million Jewish people, we should still give him a fair trial. You know, we should let him know who's accusing him. We should let him know what is being accused of and prosecute him and do it fairly. That's why I think the American justice system needs to do this, because we are known as one of the best systems in the world.
We are.
But if we're stacking the cards against defendants before it starts, then we're no different than Iran, or we're no different than Russia, we're no different than any other authoritarian state when we are presuming people to be guilty before they're innocent.
We're a little different than Iran.
Okay, a
We're
little
a little different than Russia,
Little,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
We
They
have-
presume people guilty there. 1109.
Yeah, no.
1109 is you presume guilty technically. Same with the Harvey Weinstein. They're saying that these things happened. They're bringing in people, even though you haven't been accused of the crime. They're bringing them in and saying, yeah, you did this to me. Even though I didn't call the police, even though you weren't prosecuted, you did this to me. Now what's up? What are you going to say about that?
You're right. It's very scary. And if I could just imagine myself on the receiving end of that kind of a prosecution, I'd be scared as hell. If I'm sitting there and 10 different women show up and they're like, I went on a date with this guy and these are all the bad things he did, and all of them are lies. Let's say they're all lies. And I'm sitting there, I would definitely be eating the words that I'm speaking in this podcast today, because I'd be like, holy crap, that's a bad evidentiary rule. How did they allow all these people to come in and say this? How did I not even know about any of this?
Right.
That would be prejudicial to the defendant.
I mean, in the future, if you ever become famous and they come after you and they accuse you of things that you've done when you're 18 years old, it's hard for you to remember the details of the prom or the date that you took, to the Top Gun Cruise movie, the Tom Cruise movie. You don't remember these things. It's so long ago. And that's why we encourage, and that's why we want due process to be fair.
And these evidentiary rules that limit what can get to the jury.
Yeah.
So here we are. This guy, Weinstein's overturned. It may be overturned in California. Cosby's out.
Yeah, Cosby's
Looks
out.
like-
And he's not going to get prosecuted again because the court completely threw it out, saying you effed up the case so bad, we can't give him a fair trial. Weinstein, they didn't say that. They said you effed up, but you could still give him a fair trial. You didn't mess up the case the first time so bad that you shouldn't get another trial. Cosby, that's what happened.
Wow.
The court said, you guys messed up so bad.
No chance.
No chance, because the original prosecutor, Bruce Castor, said, we're not prosecuting you. And relying on that, Cosby went and did all these
Made a bunch of
confessions.
crazy statements.
And now the government's going to take advantage of that and say, we are going to go back on our word.
Right.
That's not fair.
And I like living in a country where that's the case, because you don't want the government to be able to do that to you.
Yeah, that sounds like something straight out of like Putin's Russia.
We trick you.
We drop charge. You say what you want.
Yes.
Oh, you say what you want. Now we prosecute.
Yes.
What is that?
Yes, I know.
That's complete. Give me a break.
Yeah, agreed.
So even though is Cosby a scumbag? Yes. Does he deserve to go to jail?
Yes.
But you do it the right way, and since they do it the right way, you got to let the guy go.
So that to me seems like the Me Too wave has crested quite a bit and receded, but hopefully it's been a lesson. Hopefully it's been something that guys and girls kept a close tab on, and everybody looked at it and said, okay, that needed to happen. That we needed that kind of tornado to sweep through society. Hopefully it affects behavior for the better for people that are in power moving forward, because they kind of have that memory of the Me Too movement, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's going to continue with the force that it's been continuing. I don't know.
I look at it like the Me Too movement, like a tropical storm that was necessary for our environment to go through, to sweep, to clean.
It cleaned out some crap.
Yeah, and it did damage.
It broke some windows too.
But it was like a storm where the place needed a lot of water, and this was the only solution to come in and break through and to clean everything out. I get it. And I'm not saying it wasn't wrong, but all I'm saying is now we need to calibrate a little bit.
Yeah.
We need to make sure.
And I think we have. I don't know. I think we calibrated.
Yeah.
I go back to Depp Heard.
Oh, you think the depth heard was the calibration?
I think that the valve over cranked, and at Depp Heard, myself, just speaking subjectively of my opinion of the whole thing, many women who are super close to me, who I love dearly, I would say also, they just kind of brought the valve back a little. Like, okay, yeah, sometimes women get out of control and lie too. So, and that's good. I think that helps everybody heal. I feel like that helps guys and girls come together better. That's why I'm optimistic. I feel like the genders will realign at the end of this wave cresting. There'll be a little bit more kumbaya. This is what I hope for. And I think so. I mean, we cleaned out a lot of shitty men, right?
Yeah.
Through the Me Too movement. Some innocence.
But I think there's more to go through the ringer.
Well, I'm sure.
I don't think it's over.
I don't think we got everybody.
I'll even make a prediction. I would be shocked if like a year or 2 years from now, you see another Harvey Weinstein come out, some guy that you never expected before. Like, what? Him too?
Right.
I'm not saying it's this guy, but like,
Right.
wouldn't shock me if a nice guy like Tom Hanks had some deep, dark secrets that nobody knew about.
Right.
Like, how can it be him? Like OJ, nobody ever thought OJ would kill somebody. Nobody ever thought that Bill Cosby, America's dad,
Right.
would ever do this.
Yeah.
So
Bill Cosby, Tom Hanks, I could see it.
Yeah, Bill
Sorry,
Cosby.
Tom
Bill Cosby's
Hanks.
a nice guy.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, it wouldn't surprise me
Right.
if the Me Too movement goes after, and they should. They should.
If it's justified,
Yeah,
if there's facts there,
100%.
and if the evidentiary guardrails hold, you gotta have those guardrails.
Yes. Yeah. So look, as a lawyer, bring him in our court.
Yeah.
Let's flesh it out. If they've done this, I agree with you. Me Too should completely burn them to the stake. But
Yeah, I agree.
before we have the witch trials, we have to have the jury. We have to have the jury listen to it. We're not going to just burn them at the stake because
We don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Because we're better than that.
I'd like to think
We
are better than that.
try to be better than that.
Right. And sometimes people get away with crimes. That's true. 100%. So, but we got to let the justice system play out.
Right.
Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we don't.
And if it plays out and the jury finds there's a conviction after the evidentiary limits that we place on it, then convict, throw him away, put that guy away. And you know what? It's better for our wives, our daughters. It's better for our nieces. It's better for the women that we love. It's better for women. And that's cool.
And look what happens when you overtry a case. Bill Cosby gets set free, right?
Yeah.
That's the negative to Me Too.
That's almost a bounce back.
You put somebody in prison.
reaction.
You overdid it, and I'm not saying Cosby didn't deserve it. From what I'm reading, the court of public opinion, it sounds like the court of public opinion has a lot to be pissed at Cosby for. Okay. But in a court of law, when you bring it inside the court, the temple of justice, what do you got? You got a prosecutor that says, we're not going to prosecute you. And then you have the defendant going and blabbering and confessing. And then the prosecutor says, we're going to attack you again. That's not America.
Right.
You can't do that. You can't trick people into doing things.
Right.
If we're going to catch criminals, we do it the right way because we're above that. We have integrity. We have honor, right? We don't stoop to the level of the criminal and just sandbag them and just corner them because we can. I'll be honest with you. Any government official could frame anybody they want.
Yeah.
They could do it very, very easily.
And we know that happens in our criminal justice system. You've talked about doing people dirty before. But
we don't need to do that.
But we're trying to get past it.
And Weinstein, I think, was done dirty.
Oh, that's so hard to say, but I get what you're saying. But
he deserved it.
He's a scumbag, but he was done dirty a little.
He deserved it.
He deserved it.
I got why he got done dirty.
Yeah.
The guy's a scumbag.
But he was done a little
But now I have to step into my lawyer's shoes and say, you know what? That wasn't legally accurate.
Interesting.
We'll get him the right way, the fair way.
Wow. That makes sense, man. And you know what? That is the correct outcome.
The balancing test. That's, the scales of justice have to be very fair. You can't single out people. Even, the analogy I put it as, people say, well, how can you represent those people? How do you do that? Child molesters, rapists. And I say, how does the emergency doctor take care of the person on the table that just went and ran over 50 children and they got into a car accident, or the gang member that shot and killed an innocent person? The emergency doctor isn't going to say, I'm not going to operate on you. You're a bad person.
Right.
We all have our professional guardrails, like you said.
Yeah.
And if we're going to take Harvey Weinstein down, let's do it professionally, ethically, and with integrity. That's the way I see it.
And now we're going to watch and see if New York does it a second time.
They are going to do it a second time.
So we're going to see if they get it right.
It's going to be round 2. And that's going to be interesting because if he is found guilty, then my hypothesis is correct. We could have done it right from the get-go.
We
right?
didn't need all the
We
extra
didn't need all
sauce.
we didn't need all the extra sauce. We needed tomato. We didn't need the lettuce and the onions.
Basic burger.
Basic burger. And I think if they convict him, my hypothesis will be true that we don't need to go overboard when you prosecute.
Right.
But if he is found not guilty, what I think is going to happen is Me Too is going to say it was rigged. You guys undid social justice for all of us because now we can't introduce modus operandi. And because you guys made that bad call, Harvey Weinstein is on the loose.
Right.
So there's going to be social
backlash to it.
total backlash if he's found not guilty.
I don't know if people
they're going to blame it on the court. They're
I
going
don't
to
know if
blame it
people
on.
care anymore
Oh yeah.
about him.
Oh yeah.
He's kind of
No. A lot of people care about him. You know, Anita Hill came out and spoke against it. She's
Yeah.
a part of the Hollywood something. She's a part of a Hollywood organization that represents sexual harassment and victims.
Okay.
She spoke about it, and I think they do care. A lot of people do care.
So let's keep our eyes on New York and then California.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're out.